Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Unreal Engine Training Stream. I'm your host, Alexander Pascal, and joining me today is Wes Bunn.
Hello again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
Sure, my pleasure.
Today we're talking about saving and loading with blueprints.
Yes, we are.
This is a topic that I have had requested at me many times. So thank you so much for being able to come on short notice too. Thank you. We had to do a little bit of rescheduling here.
Sure.
And yeah, let's hop into it. You've got some slides to present.
Yeah, we got a quick PowerPoint here just to kind of
Cool.
outline what we're going to cover here today. Again, as Alex mentioned, this is something that we've covered before in documentation and in other streams. I believe I covered it in the Blueprint Time Attack series if you've gone through that as well. But we wanted to break it off into its own session here. So we're going to jump into this PowerPoint. I promise it's really quick. Just going to outline what we're doing here today. First and foremost, let's show you what we're going to try to do here in this session when I click this play button here. So we have third-person template up here. We have a UMG leaderboard of sorts. Player kind of runs around, collects these little boxes, and gets points for doing so. And we're trying to get the highest score, see how many we can collect. I can also interact with the world and open that door there. I can see I got a new high score of 7. So looking at the leaderboard, I should go into third place there above player 3 there, or right where player 3 is. So third place, I take his place. And when I exit the game here in a second, so I stop and I come back in, our leaderboard is updated and saved. So that's essentially what we want to cover, is saving and loading our data, as well as our door. Our door is open there since we opened it in the last session. So I'm just running through it again here. Got a little bit lower of a score, closed the door this time. So I have a score of 5. So I should take over the last place there, which I can enter my name. And you can see we can also save our name. So last place for me there. So this is what we're going to try to cover here today. We're going to build this from scratch, starting from the Blueprint third-person project. Really quickly, we're going to be covering multiple types of blueprints. We're going to be working with the character blueprint, save game blueprint, widget blueprints, several blueprints that we're going to use to get this to work here together. Obviously, we're going to be working with saving and loading blueprint nodes. There's several nodes that you can use inside the blueprint editor to get saving and loading working. You don't have to do this in C++. Maybe we'll cover that on a future stream. I know that's been asked. But we're going to show you how you can do it in Blueprint today. We're also going to be working with custom structs and arrays inside of our blueprints just for saving data, just to make things a little bit easier for us. Saving all of our information in a custom struct and then retrieving that information through arrays. And then we're also going to do a little bit of UMG for our UI here. I'll try to get to that really quickly because this isn't a UMG stream, so we'll go through it as quickly as we can, just so we can see our information on screen. And then finally, we'll wrap with Q&A. Any questions you guys have, just throw them at Alex. He's kind of taking note of all of those, and we'll try to answer those. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me minimize my slide here, and we'll pop open a new project, which I've created for us already. So this is just the Blueprint third-person project, starting from scratch here. If I play in the editor, which it won't let me play for some reason. There we go. So it's just the Blueprint third-person character. I can run, jump, do all that stuff for us. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel and create that. So first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go into our Blueprints folder here. And we want to identify the data that we want to save. Now, there's going to be a couple different things that we want to save, but the primary thing that we want to save is our player name and the score that they achieve. We're going to save that as a structure because it'll be easier for us to retrieve that data doing so. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go under Blueprints. And we have this structure type here, so go ahead and create that. And we'll just call this the score info. Okay. And if I double click and open it up, we have this editor here where we can identify the variables that we want to store in here. Right now we're just going to use one here. We'll just call this player name, like so. And we'll change this to a text variable. We'll add another variable. And we'll call this player score. And we'll change this to an integer. So this structure, if you're completely new to Blueprints, allows us to save a bunch of different variables within its own basic variables. So we could access this variable, access all the variables of different types within it. Just makes it a lot easier than saving off one line individual variables.
It's almost like a palette of variables.
Yeah, it's a collection, essentially, of variables. So. So we have the ability to save the player name and player score, so we'll just save this. We can just leave those default for right now. Let's close that out. And now that we have that, the next thing that we need to do is create our save game blueprint. So we can right-click and we can create a new blueprint class. Okay. And here are our common classes at the top, but we're going to go to all classes down here. I'm going to expand this, and I'll search for save game. And you can see we have this save game object here. This is what you're going to need to store all of your information is in this actual save game blueprint. So we can go ahead and choose this, and let's go ahead and select it. That's the class that we're creating here. It's of the save game type. And we'll just call it save game underscore BP. Okay. Now we can double click and open this up. And it'll look like the traditional blueprint editor with a couple exceptions. We don't have the ability to add components. We don't have a viewport, etc. We don't need any of that stuff here. All we're going to be doing in here is adding the things that we want to save. Okay, and the first that we're going to add over in the variables section here, if we click this button, the first that we're going to be saving is, let's call it top scores. So, and it's not going to be a Boolean. We're going to change the variable type to that structure that we just created called score info. Okay, so we'll change it to score info. And we're also going to click the button right next to the drop down. And we're going to make this an array because it's going to be a list of this score info, basically. We're going to have a top 5 is what we're going to keep track of. So if I compile this, you can see over in the default values here, we now have this plus sign. We can add entities to this. So I could just add in some here, however many we want to store. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so we'll just call it player 1, and we'll say that the default score, best score is 10. You can come up with better names for these than I am going to here, but we'll just say player 2.
And we are getting a quick question on this one. Jay of Earth was asking, how is the structure better than game mode or instance for storing this data?
How is a structure?
Yeah.
Well, the structure itself it's just, as we've mentioned, it's a collection of individual variables. We're going to save this inside of the game mode in a little bit here, but we're using the structure to populate our save game asset, which we're going to create here in a moment as well. So you'll see this come together here in a second.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense since we want to transfer all this information. But so yeah, I could see how you might think I'll just make variables within inside the game mode itself that are for the name and all this. But since we're going to be passing this information along so much together, we might as well just make a struct for it all.
Yeah. So I'm just assigning some arbitrary values here for the scores to beat. So we have player 1 with 10 all the way down to player 5 that's got a measly 2. So we have some default values here for our top scores. We're going to add another variable here. So in the past, we've done, and I've done tutorials here on storing information like integers, points, health, things like that. Alex came to me this morning and asked if we could also store things that affect the world.
Yeah, like a location of something.
Yeah,
or something
so
like
I
that.
kind of toyed around with it. There's a couple different ways you could do that. You can store pretty much any variable that you want and save it. Any of the variable types here. You could save vector information, rotation, transform. You could do it that way. I just created a Boolean for unlocking a door in our level potentially. So say there's some area in your level that you want to have blocked off, and then the player meets some conditions and they unlock it, but you want to save that so that when they power down the game and turn it back on, that door or area is accessible. I did it with a Boolean, but you could do it with transform information too if you want, or vector or rotation, depending on your needs. So I'm just going to create a variable, a Boolean one, and we're going to change that not to an array. And we'll just say door unlocked.